Alright, I'm just gonna make a little video here. Playing some Sudoku, hard difficulty, while we try to watch this video here at the same time. Zenia's here. Let's go.
In the madness of Donald Trump, the decline and fall of Donald Trump, with him tonight now, calling for the execution of members of Congress, the first president of the United States to call for members of Congress to be put to death. The American news media has been so overwhelmed by Donald Trump since his emergence on the political stage that the New York Times, which continues to do great work in covering Donald Trump and the world, has lost its perspective on the enormity of what Donald Trump decided to say today about members of Congress, saying something that he says is, quote, punishable by death. Had any other president of the United States ever said anything like it, the New York Times would have a 6-inch headline about it and a front page devoted entirely to that madness and the reaction to that madness. And tonight, it's not even close to the lead story in the New York Times. It is impossible to make too much of this story. And the only way to try to reduce the historic and moral and legal importance of what Donald Trump said is to internalize the notion that Donald Trump's words do not matter. And the American news media has done that. And they have done it for exactly one president. The old rules will come roaring back as soon as Donald Trump isn't president anymore. The next Democratic president better be prepared for the New York Times and the rest of the news media to scream attention to any phrasing on any subject by a Democratic president that they think is imperfect. A week ago, Donald Trump had one member of Congress in the basement of the White House, turning the Situation Room into a police interrogation room with the top cop in the country, Donald Trump's Attorney General.
Let me just say this is extremely out of pocket by Donald Trump trying to try, saying that even. Words hold power. Words hold power, hold meaning, hold spirit, have consequences. Talking about free speech, it's free speech doesn't apply when there is consequences of your words. You know what I'm saying? Then you have to talk about what you said and what it led to. And you can say that there's no evidence for the words leading to that negative consequence. But you can't hold that standard for somebody that is the president. You can definitely say that for your average person, but the president should be above the average person, not the average person, right? But I have some opinions on that too. Like, it's definitely it's clear to me that the MAGA movement, they don't respect governance and politics at all, and they don't really care if the government just explodes. But let's continue with this Sudoku here.
And others in the room trying to get one member of Congress to confess that she was wrong to sign that discharge petition in the House of Representatives, signed mostly by Democrats, to force the release of the Epstein files. That's what Donald Trump was trying to do 1 week ago. Not punish members of Congress by death, but just change one mind, one Republican mind. And he failed. And his Attorney General failed. And Congresswoman Lauren Boebert did the honorable thing and stared back at the most powerful law enforcement official in the country and the president she has been so loyal to and said no. If she had said yes, if she had gone back to the House of Representatives and taken her signature off that discharge petition, then that bill never would have come to a vote. That's all Donald Trump had to do. That's how close he came. He just had to convince one Republican to take her name off that discharge petition, and Donald Trump a week ago wasn't powerful enough to do that. He wasn't powerful enough to force one Republican to bend to his will. And that's when we saw the first real crack in the Trump wall in the Congress. The Trump wall that forbids Republicans from ever voting with Democrats on anything. Never mind something that's personally important to Donald Trump, which is to continue to hide the details of his friendship with the child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who said he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. There has been no more important vote in Donald Trump's presidency than the vote that was about him and his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. And all Donald Trump had to do to prevent that vote was to convince one Republican woman to take her name off that list, take her signature off that list. And Donald Trump couldn't do that. That was inconceivable just days before. It seemed impossible to imagine that Donald Trump, when he really needed a Republican member of the House to do what he wanted, that he wouldn't be able to convince that Republican.
You know what I think about that? I think that, uh, you know what I think? Of course, I don't know what I think, but what I think about that is, you know, I think that why it took such a long time in order for the politicians to start to change their views on releasing the Epstein files is that they basically didn't know if they would have the support of the people. And when they started to see that even MAGA members started to change their opinion on the whole thing with the release, the slow release of the Epstein files, then they started to take the other route of actually being honest and saying that this needs to be released. And I think that also the politicians, because there's going to be probably some politicians that are affected by this, and powerful people affected by this release, at least if the files are released with all the names as we want it. Uh, there's going to be some effect on some powerful people. And those powerful people, well, the politicians needs to reposition themselves, have time to reposition themselves before those powerful people will get into trouble. Even those powerful people that will be affected, they themselves needed the time to reposition themselves in such a way that even if they get implemented, they are able to get out of it. And also, of course, the destruction of potential evidence that they themselves might have, so that there is no way that any kind of investigation can go into their files and their data and extract more harmful information. So they all needed time to reposition themselves, to organize themselves in such a way that even if an investigation are going to happen after the release, they are as safe as they feel they can be. That's what I think, and why I think it took a long time for this to happen.
It's impossible to see the weakness of a dictatorship until defiance exposes that weakness. The collapse of the Trump dictatorship in the Congress, the collapse of the Trump wall in the House of Representatives, and the Trump wall down the center aisle of the United States Senate, the Trump wall that prevented Republicans from ever voting with Democrats, the collapse of that wall happened as dramatically and quickly as the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989, after 29 years of people being shot in the back trying to climb over that wall to escape East Berlin, murdered by a Soviet-controlled dictatorship. Suddenly, was all over. And a week before, no one saw it coming.
Good evening, live from the Berlin Wall on the most historic night in this wall's history. What you see behind me is a celebration of this new policy announced today by the East German government that now, for the first time since the wall was erected in 1961, people will be able to move through freely. This crowd has gathered here tonight spontaneously. From the East German side, they have been training water cannon, as you can see on some of the celebrants, but it doesn't seem to make much difference.
NBC News' Tom Brokaw was the only American news reporter there on November 9th, 1989. The CIA didn't predict that. The people imprisoned in East Germany rose up in massive numbers and began pouring through the checkpoints where they used to be murdered for taking too many steps toward that wall. And by the time Tom Brokaw was there, 20,000 people had rushed through that checkpoint. And as people climbed to the top of the Berlin Wall that night, and the pathetic water cannons from the dictatorship side of the wall.
I just want to give you say I'm sorry here. If you have found anything in Sudoku, I am kind of trying to focus on both the Sudoku and what they're saying at the same time so that I can make some comments here. But I want to make some comments about this Berlin Wall. To you youngsters out there, the Berlin Wall and what's going on there, that was a total horrible situation. A total horrible situation with like a the oppression on those people that was made by the Berlin Wall. That was something really crazy. That was something really extremely oppressive, traumatic experience for I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. I don't know how many people lived there at that point in time, but it's a city. It's a big city. It's Berlin. It's the main city. If I remember correctly, it's the main city of Germany and its capital city. That wall right there destroyed many lives and many people's lives. And it was oppressive, and it was if you even try to cross this wall, you're getting shot. That's what's happened right there in the Berlin Wall. So, and you had people splitting up, families splitting up, communities splitting up, businesses and everything. It was a crazy situation.
Sprayed on them, those protesters mocked the wall. They mocked the deadly fearsomeness of that wall. They instantly turned that wall of death into a joke. And then East and West Germans went to work with their own hands and tore it down. No government tore down that wall. No politician tore down that wall. The people tore down that wall. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's victims, almost all of whom are now survivors, tore down the Trump wall in the House and the Senate. And we watched them do it. And a week before the unanimous vote against Donald Trump, no one saw it coming. Just like no one saw the collapse of the Berlin Wall coming a week before it fell, the collapse of the Berlin Wall was the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. A year later, the Soviet Union was tottering. And 2 years after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet Union was gone. Is that where we are tonight? We know Donald Trump will be gone in 3 years. But will the people tear down Trumpism before that? A year after the unanimous vote in the House of Representatives and the Senate against Donald Trump, voters will go to the polls in this country to decide how many Trump supporters they want in the House and how many in the Senate and how many opponents of Donald Trump they want in the House and in the Senate. No one knew In that week, when the Berlin Wall collapsed, the Soviet Union was then going to collapse. And that's where we are tonight. We don't know what will happen next year. But now we know what's possible. We've seen the collapse of the Trump wall in Congress, and we know that Donald Trump is weaker than he has ever been as president. And it may be that we are a year away from Donald Trump coming under the full control of a Democratic House of Representatives and a Democratic United States Senate, and that would bring Trumpism to an end. The Congress can fully control Donald Trump's madness, but the Republican Congress so far refuses to do that. A Democratic Congress will control Donald Trump. A Democratic Congress will investigate Donald Trump and everyone working for him, and they all know it. And so a week after trying and failing to convince one Republican member of Congress to change her mind, Donald Trump turns to threatening death for 6 Democratic members of Congress because they said this.
Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army, our Navy,
the Air Force,
Your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution
And who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Honestly, I just want to say a couple words about that video. Honestly, that video right there, like, I'm not from the US myself, but that video right there is kind of what I imagine when I imagine the US. My naive kind of idealistic picture of the US, that's exactly what I imagine. Principles, doing what's right, and like being a what do we call it? The leaders, like a positive having a what's it called? I don't know what it's called. I don't remember what it's called in English, but being like the celebrity of the world. You know what I'm saying? Someone to follow, someone to show how to do things right. And that video right there, it was like kind of a video I can see from the top of the US like government leadership saying something that brings back like a nostalgic feeling for the way I imagine or the way I saw the US and when I was younger, when all of this crazy stuff starting, I would say around and about the Obama times. It wasn't Obama himself, but it was more the controversies going on around Obama. Was like it made me think, like, wait, is the US really like that? Is the US does the US really go and treat people like this? Obama, he didn't say, he might have said something that was kind of not considerate enough, but he was such a principled person A role model. That's right. That is exactly what I was thinking about earlier. The US was like a role model to me. I wanted to be everything that the US was. I wanted to be like a US citizen. That's what I wanted to be. But when I grew up and I started with the Obamas, and of course we had of course the the that that guy, that crazy guy doing wars in Iraq and everything like that. But that was more like I didn't see him like the real US, because I saw a lot of criticisms about him, and there was nobody at that time when I was younger that justified him. I don't remember what his name was, but I remember his face and his voice very clearly, and he was doing wars all over the place. But yeah, this video right here, there's nothing wrong about it. He told soldiers to think about the orders they get, or if they're according to law. That is something that definitely has to be emphasized in this day and age, when you have your military or the military of your own country going into itself just for controlling, basically controlling the people. That is a that's a communist thing. Like that's a North Korea thing, a Russia thing, a China thing. That's not a US thing. I would never imagine that when I was younger. When I was younger, I would never imagine that. And I think a lot of even US citizens wouldn't imagine that.
At 9:08 a.m. today, Donald Trump wrote his first lies about what you just heard. And please remember that everything I report to you that Donald Trump said about this is a lie. He said it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. 3 exclamation points. An example must be set. There is nothing seditious about it. The only logic of Donald Trump's statement is that he wants to be able to issue illegal orders, and he wants the American military to follow his illegal orders. It is impossible for anyone who understands the English language and the law to disagree with a single word that any of those members of Congress said. And everyone today who has objected to what they said has left out the fact that they are all referring only to illegal orders. 12 minutes later, Donald Trump wrote, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up, ? Now, no, they will never be locked up. They will never be charged. There is nothing to investigate. Every word they said is true and is legally correct. And then an hour later, Donald Trump said, seditious behavior punishable by death. To which Senator
There again, punishable by death. The president of the US spouting nonsense, punishable by death, to just make a kind of PSA stating truth, stating just facts. That's punishable by death, according to Donald Trump. And then he's gonna say, "Oh no, it's free speech. It's everything." Uh, the free speech nonsense, man. Everyone that talks about free speech, over and over again, like it's a defense for consequence, for and we're talking about public consequence. We're not talking about consequence according to law. We're not talking about because Donald Trump said that it's punishable by death, he's gonna be put in jail. No, we're just gonna say that because he said that, well, he's not gonna get voted on. That we're not gonna support that. That's what we're talking about here. But even saying that as the president, with the power that he has, you could definitely argue, and could definitely argue as well, that his words there when he says is punishable by death is not just words. It's the words of the president stating something. He's stating something that it is punishable by death. The US president is stating that. It's not just free speech, you can say what you want to. The president shouldn't act like that. He should have standards, higher standards.
Schumer said this.
Let's be crystal clear. The President of the United States is calling for the execution of elected officials.
I think that was that video. Let's see if we should move. I want to move on to the next video. See what we got here. This was out
now to Washington
1 hour ago. Let's see if it's an AI video or what is this. Might be an AI video.
where President Trump accused a group of Democratic lawmakers of sedition, calling their actions, quote, punishable by death after they released a video urging members of the U.S. military to refuse illegal orders. The president's comments sparking an outcry on Capitol Hill. They come at a time when political violence on both sides is on the rise.
KTLA's Jonathan Olio is live from the...
And this, again, I gotta just say a couple of words about this. The on both sides thing, man, we have to just be able to get down to a topic and a subject. And we're talking about what Donald Trump said right here. That is, we're not talking about both sides all the time. You have to be able to talk about one side and the other side. You don't have to say both sides, because that's just a you could say that kind of almost every time there is something going on. There is stuff happening on both sides. Of course, there's stuff happening on both sides, but you have to be able to talk about a certain group, specify who you're talking about, and that specific group, what's going on here. You cannot just talk about the entire conflict all of the time, because then you cannot make any statements kind of at all. You have to be able to see specify what's happening on one side, then you move on to specify what happens on the other side. This both sides thing, it's a cop-out.
News Center with more. John.
Cher and Micah, in this social media video, Democratic lawmakers say the Trump administration is pitting the U.S. military and intelligence community against American citizens. Lawmakers then call on service members to refuse illegal orders, but they don't specify what those orders are.
Disgusting and dangerous what Donald Trump has said.
They don't specify. Okay, wait a minute.
Call on service members to refuse illegal orders, but they don't specify what those orders are.
They don't specify those orders. That's right. That's right. they're not trying to say that there's some illegal orders going on. That's not what they're trying to say. But what they're trying to say is that if you get an illegal order, don't do it. Because there's stuff going on right now, sending military into your own home country. That is a dangerous situation where illegal orders can happen very easily. Very, very easily. They didn't say that illegal orders have happened, but if they do, because orders doesn't always come up to the surface who said what. It could be a simple officer in the military saying to somebody to slap a innocent person in the face or whatever, and there is no record of it. There is no proof. But in that moment, that soldier should be show restraint. That's what they're trying to say. If there is illegal orders, if there is going to be an illegal order, try to think before you do that. And it's definitely it's rational. I mean, rational. That's maybe not a word, but it's nothing crazy about that. There's nothing wrong about that. It's just a reminder, as if I were to remind people to not do illegal substances, then are you going to go and ask me, oh, did we do illegal substances now? Who is doing illegal substances? Are you uh, uh, claiming that I'm doing something wrong here, or are you? That's what like accusing. Are you accusing me of doing illegal substances? That just because somebody's going out putting a video saying, "Remember to not take illegal substances," you should refuse doing illegal substances. Like, come on.
Disgusting and dangerous what Donald Trump has said.
Tonight, Democrats are condemning President Trump following a flurry of social media posts in which he accuses them of seditious behavior at the highest level, seditious behavior punishable by death, and saying each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. The president responding to this video from 6 Democratic lawmakers.
You can refuse illegal orders.
Calling on U.S. service members to reject unlawful orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
The lawmakers in question all served in the military or in U.S. intelligence.
All of us who contributed to this video are either former CIA or former military. And we've just been hearing from a huge number of rank and file people in uniform and the intelligence community saying, like, I feel like I'm going to be asked to do something that's not legal.
Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin says she's received hundreds of death threats following Mr. Trump's post.
We've gotten, a huge spike in death threats and intimidation on our phones and on our emails and websites.
The president later reposting a comment in which someone says, hang them, George Washington would.
This is an outright threat, and it's deadly serious.
The words that the president chose are not the ones that I would use, okay? Obviously, I don't think that these are crimes punishable by death or any of that, okay?
Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt.
Just another comment here. Like, this guy right here. I've heard so much about him lately. And he's definitely in a twist, this guy. He's definitely in a twist. It's clear to me that he knows what's right and what's wrong. And he is choosing to stand up to protect Donald Trump because he cannot go against him. He's definitely scared and afraid. And he feels like the smart thing to do right now is stand with Donald Trump. And you don't know, and I don't know what kind of things contribute to this. It can be family reasons, it can be friends reasons, business reasons, money reasons, any kind of reasons. It could be a lot of reasons. Threatening threats, reasons of threats. Who knows what kind of reasons? But it's clear to me that this guy knows what's going on, and the fact that he laughs right here, this laugh he gets right here. Look at this laugh.
By death or any of that, okay?
Just to be clear.
No, wait here.
President chose are not the ones that I would use, okay? Obviously, I don't think that this is these are crimes punishable by death or.
See, he laughs right there when he says crimes punishable by death, because he knows this is ludicrous things to say, but he's gonna downplay it, control his emotions here, and try to speak like there is nothing wrong with saying these things, or he might say that it would be wrong, but not that it's insane of the president to do this thing, and he will really drop his support for the president. That laugh right there, it says it all. He knows that it's ridiculous.
Any of that, okay?
Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt firing back, insisting the Democrats' video could incite violence.
It could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command.
The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
They're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is
there again, suggesting he's giving illegal orders. No, they're not suggesting that Donald Trump gave illegal orders. That's not what they're suggesting. There again, with those kind of suggesting, it doesn't matter what is suggested in their perspective. It matters what you say. And what did Donald Trump say? He said outrageous, insane things. And he's been saying outrageous and insane things for a very long time. So what is being suggested in your perspective and your opinion, that doesn't matter. What they said, you're not obliged to follow illegal orders. It doesn't need to come from Donald Trump. It can come from anyone in the military.
given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command, through the Secretary of War, is lawful.
If he doesn't think we should be arrested, tried, and hanged, as he said this morning, he should say that.
Of course, all of this comes at a time of increased political violence in our country. Earlier this year, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So was Democratic Minnesota state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. And Democratic Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home was firebombed. And President Trump himself was the target of 2 assassination attempts. Now, following today's threats, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has asked Capitol Police to provide those.
And that again, I don't know what they're talking about, firebombs and this and that. Obviously, it's not right. It's not right to do violence against politicians for doing just politics like that. That is exactly not what's supposed to happen in democracy. You're supposed to be voted out when, or you could be, yeah, you're supposed to be voted out. Your support should be dropped, and you leave your position. That is what's supposed to happen. I don't know if they said Ben Shapiro there. Something about Ben Shapiro. It's strange that I haven't seen anything about that. But I mean, firebomb. That sounds very dramatic. Like a firebombing. Did he really get firebombed? And I didn't see anything about it. I wonder if it was just a simple arson, even if that is not all right either. But bomb, like, really. Maybe that did happen, but anyways, it's not right. It's not right at all to be attacking your neighbors at all.
Lawmakers in the video with extra protection. Back to you.
Well, that was that video. Man, this Sudoku is popping off. It is difficult, this Sudoku. I'm on hard difficulty with a win streak of, I think, 6 or 7. It is really difficult at this point. I don't want to open videos that is from creators like Luke Beasley here. I want to open videos from news channels if I can find it. Here, this was 3 hours ago.
Jennifer Pinate is live in the newsroom with what those Democrats said and the new fallout tonight, Jennifer.
Anna Maria, President Trump is facing heat from both sides of the aisle.
That was kind of loud.
Republicans say that kind of rhetoric could put lives at risk. The 6 Democrats behind the video say they are upholding their oath to the Constitution.
Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Tonight, the White House tempering the president's words.
Like, you could say no. You could say no. But what he himself tweeted, what he himself wrote, I think it's on Truth Social, I guess, but when the president writes this sort of thing, maybe I think that maybe the reason why they're able to do all this sort of stuff is that when they see something written down, maybe they're not reading. Maybe they don't believe like something that's written down, like everything that's written down is a joke or something. But that is not things that are written down. That is extremely not jokes. What you say out loud, that is something that is maybe something more that you could argue that you were not thinking it through, and you were saying stuff using the wrong words. But when you write things down, you have all the time in the world to think about what you're writing down. So she's just coming out and saying the president didn't mean what he was writing down right there. That is, it's moronic. It's moronic. And it is sad that these kind of things are just allowed to pass as acceptable to a large group enough to just let this go on through the next day and through the next month. When the president says one thing and then another one press secretary here comes out and says another thing. Like, if this was, 20 years ago, I believe, he definitely would have been immediately put on, like, kind of an investigation right here. Immediately had to go out and apologize for this.
words after he called 6 Democratic members of Congress traitors and accused them of, quote, seditious behavior punishable by death.
The words that the president chose are not the ones that I would use, okay?
House Speaker Mike Johnson calling it heated rhetoric, but added the president is making a point.
What they did was, I think, unprecedented in American history, and it should be called out.
It comes after the lawmakers, all whom are veterans and national security specialists, released this video.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
Reminding service members they can refuse to follow orders that violate the law.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
New Hampshire Rep. Maggie Goodlander says with this video, she is honoring the oath she took.
it is stunning that the commander-in-chief believes that a clear statement of federal law is a crime. It's just, it shocks the conscience. This is a completely American and constitutional idea.
To suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do, and they should be held accountable.
Like, look, defy the chain of command. Defy the chain of command. What this is kind of telling me is that the MAGA movement, well, I don't even really know if the government right now, the people that are making the decisions in the White House, I don't even think it's really Donald Trump that's making the decisions. Definitely not. I don't think that. But the people making decisions in the White House, and I don't know if they even really take the MAGA movement seriously. Like, of course, they want their support, but I don't think that they really get down with the MAGA movement like that. I think that they're stringing the MAGA movement along to get support for them to do all of these things that is above the head of many of the MAGA movement supporters. Because please just get real. Many of the MAGA movement people, they are from rural areas. Rural areas means lower education. Okay, it's nothing wrong with that. Everyone can get more educated. It doesn't speak to your intelligence, but education will inform better decisions. Okay, that's just the truth. Anyways, those people in the White House that are actually deciding things, I think what they're doing is they want to be able to make orders that are total orders. And there was even somebody that said that kind of thing. It was that bald guy with the nose. You know what I'm talking about, that guy. He said that the president's orders to the military were absolute. In other words, total and undefiable. He said that, and he immediately needed to readjust his words right there. They said he had a problem with the mic or something. The video's up there. I can pull that up if you don't believe me. But he said that, and he's one of those people that is really doing decisions, making decisions in the White House right now. He wants to be able to tell the military to do exactly whatever he wants it to do. He wants if Trump says, go and jump in the sea and throw all your weapons in the sea, then they're gonna do that and are not allowed to defy that. Or go out, take all your clothes off and lay down on the ground, the entire military, then they should do that. That's the kind of power and control that they want. And even if it is such in this case, to actually invade cities in the US, because the mayors of these cities didn't want the military to come in there. Nobody asked the military to come there. So the feds should not be able to just send military however they want, because it's the US is not like that, right? That's not what the US is supposed to be.
House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries says he is working to ensure the safety of those 6 congressmen and women. In the newsroom, Jennifer Pignate, WCVB News Center 5.
That was that video. Man, this Sudoku taking time. I can get serious on the Sudoku. But I want to listen to the videos as well, to be able to know what's going on out here. What's this? 2 days ago. Let's see the news. 1 hour ago. Trump makes fool of Republicans who described violent rhetoric with call for death. Look at that.
Donald Trump called Democratic lawmakers traitors today for reminding active duty service members that they are obligated to refuse illegal orders. But it's worth remembering that this is not a radical concept. This is literally the law. And also, here's what...
Oh. But didn't they say Republicans here in the description? What are they talking about Democrats now? Let's listen to that again.
Donald Trump called Democratic lawmakers traitors today for reminding active duty service members that they are obligated to refuse illegal orders. But it's worth remembering that this is not a radical concept. This is literally the law. And also, here's what Maryland Governor Wes Moore told me just last month.
We take the oath that we are going to follow the Constitution of the United States of America, and we will follow the lawful orders of the Commander-in-Chief. That's the struggle. That I think for a lot of members of the military, they're figuring right now, we will follow the commands of our Commander-in-Chief. That's the oath that we took. When they're lawful.
When they're lawful. That's the key part. It's the same message. But Trump reacted differently this time. Maybe it's because his hand was forced in releasing the Epstein files. Maybe it's the recent wave of terrible polling headlines. Who knows? But what is clear, what has always been clear, is that his words have real consequences. And today the evidence came very quickly. One of the Democratic senators in the ad, Alyssa Slotkin, says she now has a Capitol Police officer detailed to her 24/7. She said, quote, "We've had hundreds and hundreds, if not closer to 1,000 threats." That's just today. Joining me now are 2 Democratic members of Congress who were in that ad, who have served themselves, who are urging service members to remember their oaths. Pennsylvania Congressman Chris Deluzio, who served 3 deployments as an active duty officer in the U.S. Navy, and New Hampshire Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, who served as an intelligence officer in the U.S. Navy Reserve. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Let me just start by asking you each how you are and if you have experienced what Senator Slotkin has experienced in terms of threats over the last 24 hours or less than 24 hours.
No one wants to have the president call for their death and hanging, which he's done to us and other of our colleagues, and that's a terrifying prospect. But I know, and I'm certain Maggie will say the same thing, we're not going to be deterred from doing our job and doing our duty, upholding the oath we both swore and our colleagues have all sworn to the Constitution. I'm not going to be intimidated by this president or anyone else, and I think it says something to the country that a president, the most powerful person on planet Earth, when confronted with members of Congress saying a basic fundamental truth about our Constitution, responds with a threat of death. That tells you who he is in his regard for the law.
It's quite telling. It really is. Have you had to get any new additional protections as a result of what Trump did this morning?
Look,
you know, it's impossible not to take steps when the President of the United States threatens you with violence. But the bottom line is we love this country, we love our Constitution, and what we've said is simply what the law is. And that is not a crime. That is not sedition. That is our job as lawmakers. And our message is to our service members who we deeply respect and who need to know that we've got their back. You know, I think, Chris, you probably feel the same way. If I were in the Navy now, I would want to hear from members of Congress. I want to hear from the country that we are supported in upholding our oath to this Constitution.
Because members of the military, I think some of them are scared right now about what they're being asked to do and whether it's legal, right? I mean, that seems to be what prompted you to be a part of this.
And I think, look, we have the best and brightest, we have the best fighting force in the world, period. People understand their oaths. And senior leaders have the assistance of JAG's military lawyers to help them navigate through these questions. I have the utmost confidence in our service members, from the most junior to the most senior, that they understand the responsibilities. It's something we learned, whether you were at boot camp or officer candidate school, you name it. You learn on day one that you are compelled to comply with lawful orders from the president on down, and you're never compelled to comply with illegal ones. That is a basic principle in our constitutional system.
I played a little bit of what Speaker Mike Johnson said earlier today. He got a second bite of the apple. I just want to play that, and we'll talk about it.
The words that the president chose are not the ones that I would use, okay? Obviously, I don't think that this is, these are crimes punishable by death or any of that. Sometimes he uses heated rhetoric, okay? But do any of you agree that that's appropriate, that they should be telling young members of the military to defy orders? You should think about the implications of that. The president's trying to make a point. I think he made the point.
First of all, I don't know what point the president was trying to make. You were not telling.
Yeah, that's not making a point. That is not making a point. You cannot make a point by just saying outrageous things that you against people that you don't agree with. That is not making a point. That is definitely not making a point. And telling people to defy unlawful orders is not wrong. Again, it's not wrong. They just want to have total control of the military to do anything and everything for them. That is clear. That is definitely clear. So that in the future, you don't even know what the military might do to you. In the US, I mean. Even across the whole world, actually.
Anyone to defy legal orders, illegal orders. I've been around this town long enough to remember when supporting colleagues when there are security threats is a bipartisan thing, when supporting the military is a bipartisan thing. What do you make of that response?
Look, you know, the speaker he's missing the point here. Our point is really straightforward and simple, and this is just not who we are as a country.
And look, I'll say it quite clearly. I heard from a lot of Republicans demanding that Democrats condemn the killing of Charlie Kirk, which we did. I was proud to say that when Donald Trump was nearly killed, we quickly condemned that violence in my home state of Pennsylvania. When Josh Shapiro was nearly killed in Governor's Mansion, you don't get to pick or choose when political violence shows up, whether you condemn it. I have not heard strong condemnations from my Republican counterparts. I hope they will do that. This shouldn't be difficult. The president called for our death and hanging because we said something basic and fundamental about our Constitution.
It should not be difficult, and I would condemn and call for, calm in any of those circumstances, and if anybody was threatened. Let's go back to the original meaning and reason for the PSA, or for the video that you all did. It was prompted, I know you've each talked about this in different ways in the media, it seemed to be prompted by concerns perhaps within the military, by some of what you have all seen as people who have served that you have concerns about the legality of. This is one of the talking points from the right wing that I think is so insane, that there's no specific cases where there was any illegal actions. Tell me about what are you looking at that prompted you to want to be a part of this effort?
Look, we've got a president of the United States who has repeatedly tested the boundaries of the law, who has issued unlawful orders, illegal orders again and again. Just today, we saw a federal court responding to that. And we've got a Secretary of Defense who came before our committee, the House Armed Services Committee. I asked him a very simple question, a question that has only one answer. The question was, will you abide by a decision of the United States Supreme Court? He refused to commit to doing so. This puts our service members in a terrible situation, and it's on all of us to be very clear. This is a moment for moral clarity and for legal clarity. And what we have done is to state a simple and critical principle of law.
I think you're both providing a great deal of moral clarity. As I was just talking with Jonathan Karl about, neither of you are people who are out there looking for conflict or looking to make waves. You're there stating a principle and a value you believe in, which is incredibly powerful. I thank you both so much for being here. I know this has been a challenging day, and you're standing firmly despite that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is definitely not right. That is not right. Two like wonderful people right there being threatened. Like threatened, their life is threatened because of the president. And they're citizens of the country. They're important people in the US. Like this just insane. It's just insane. What more do we have here? Who says this? 6 hours ago.
Members of Congress and the Senate who all served in the military or the CIA, all because of this video they put together addressing members of the armed forces and intelligence community.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals
Against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
Our Constitution
And who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Now, plainly, there's nothing in that video that isn't taught to every military officer as part of their training. They take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And disobeying illegal orders is not sedition or treason. It's a duty. It's obvious to everyone, but we have a commander-in-chief who is actually likely to give that illegal order and perhaps has already done so. And so he responded by going off the deep end on social media today, quote, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up." An hour later, he posted that the video was, quote, "seditious behavior, punishable by death." He also reposted calls from supporters to hang those Democrats for treason. Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, one of the Democrats in the video, she served in the CIA and is a Pentagon official before coming to Congress, and she joins me now. Senator, it's good to have you.
Thanks.
First, let me just ask, what has it meant for you to have the president say this about you, to call you seditious and treasonous and to repost someone calling for you to be hanged?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it more than the six of us who filmed the video, it's really just a sad moment in American politics. I mean, we know that. But, you know, today it really came home for many of us. And
I mean, a sad moment. This is not simply a sad moment. This is, I mean, this is one of many disastrous moments. Like, how can the US, when it's been like this, from now on,